Okay. You can see it is holding up 24 FPS. So that's a good sign.
That's a good sign. Absolutely. Moral of the story.
Right.
Don't stream from an ultrabook or even an Intel processor.
Never.
Absolutely. No, I mean, if it is a laptop, it's a PC. It's fine.
Correct. Right. So I do have the link. I'm just copying the link and
Perfect.
sharing it to Telegram. First, I'm
Absolutely.
sharing it to you so that we have the thumbnail and all those things come up. Yeah, that looks good. Oh. Yep. That of the way.
There was a little bit of frame drops, but I think now that is solved.
All right.
It went red and now it's green. Right?
Okay.
Yeah, now and then there is a small.
Yeah, I'm also monitoring the live stream.
I guess.
And
I
going
guess
good.
you are currently in London. Things are snowing
Yep,
over there.
absolutely correct. I mean, if you come to my place, you will feel like London because you are not having that much temperature, right?
Correct. Absolutely.
Right. So I just shared it everywhere. Let's see. Let's wait. I think we have one viewer already.
Perfect. I mean, that is most probably
That could be you.
me.
Right. All right. I think when we hit 2 users,
Yeah,
we
I can't see the user, so like.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, we do have 2 users.
Perfect.
Yeah. So let's start the episode, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Open Talks episode number 26. In this episode, we have lots of things to discuss. Like, we are like ending the rituals of talking about the topics first and going through it. We will just go in the flow. Like generally, me and Abhiram go in that way, right? So let's go and let's discuss all the topics. Yeah, you can start.
And we are back.
Right. So, yeah. Hello, everyone. Uh, Today, first of all, honorable mentions to Gentoo, right? Let's start the topic with Gentoo. So,
Absolutely.
2 weeks back, uh, like I think 1 month or 2 months back, Abhiram first of all tried Gentoo. I mean, he tried way back in virtual machines, but on his server, when we faced the issue with OBS, we wanted to see like if there is some issue with some libraries of arts or something like that. So what Abhiram did is he went with Gentoo, and Gentoo we all know it's a source based distribution. So essentially, it compiles each and every open source software and installs the binary. So what with that what happens is, so let's say if your processor is 8th generation, or let's say if your processor is 3rd generation, right? So each and every processor has its own different features in terms of instructions, flags, and lots of different things. And those can be utilized only if that binary is compiled with particular flags and particular optional features enabled. Now, what happens is generally with a generic distribution like Ubuntu or Arch, you are given the binary. So those binaries are compiled uh, for every processor. So that binary has to work on the first gen and on the 12th gen. Talking about Intel, right? Also, it has to work on AMD, all the generations. So what happens is it's a generic binary. It's not specific for your processor, and due to that, if your processor is not having certain level of features, then it falls back to very old flags and features. Due to that, that binary is not that much optimized. And this is where the source-based distributions like Gentoo and LFS, Linux from scratch, comes in, wherein user himself or herself compiles the binary and uses it. So first of all, Abhiram shifted from ours to Gentoo, and then he helped me to switch. And now, I mean, overall, I'm having around 30 to 40% of headroom in the sense like generally whenever all the things are going on like coding, YouTube, music, my CPU used to stay around 70-60%. Now it's way below, like 20, way below than 25%. So I already have 30 to 40% of headroom in terms of CPU. And talking about RAM, it used to go, I mean, I have 12 GB of RAM, and it used to go 11 GB within like 24 or 48 hours of uptime without any reason. And here I'm not seeing that thing. So whenever I close some RAM intensive thing, there is no RAM leakage, memory leakage. Uh, the RAM comes to life whenever I close the RAM intensive application. So that's a very good point about this Gentoo. So Gentoo is like very tightly integrated OS where nothing can go wrong ideally. So yeah, I think
Absolutely.
you can go ahead and
So
present
yeah,
your
I
views.
mean it's all about libraries, right? The sense.
Yeah.
Normally binary-based distributions they will have an ideal system, right? I mean, what the
Hmm.
user might be actually running. I mean, what are the libraries they may be running? What are the softwares they might be running? They will have a prejudice, right? Kind of like. But with Gen 2, the prejudice is no longer there because it can literally check what are there and just compile for that particular purpose only, right? I mean, nothing more, nothing less, right?
All
And
right.
that is a major key point which actually helps you in RAM department because
Hmm.
you are not having all the bloat, right?
Correct.
And also you are having all the optimizations on the CPU, and both combined will actually give you a better performance. And when we talk about optimizations on CPU, right? I mean, you know,
Hmm.
we have I guess Intel, AMD, right? And both of them
Right.
have different instruction sets, and different instructions will actually run at different speeds, right? Like, depending on the instruction and depending on the CPU. And this
Correct.
this is mainly due to the implementation standpoint of the CPU. Like the everything is like ISA, right? Instruction set architecture, and both are same for like Intel as well as AMD. But the thing is, the implementation of each instruction inside this processor is actually different. This is why we can say safely that old architectures are even, with 4 gigahertz of clock speed, right? They are way slower than modern processors with even, like, 2.5 gigahertz, because of these
Yes.
optimizations, right, inside the architecture itself. And this is a major key point. And also one more other things of, like, some process might have so many parallel units and all those things, right, internal the CPU. So those kind of things we can use it, right? I mean, we can,
Hmm.
but we can only use it if we are compiling it in the particular machine. Otherwise, we don't actually know. Okay, these parallel units is there. We can optimize the code in such a way that these parallel units can be utilized, right? There is not a way, right? There is no way. So
Right.
that is one of the optimization. This is architectural optimization in the sense, like a overall general case. But then comes optimization to the specific architecture. That is, what extra does it offer, right? What extra does it offer on table? Some architectures might have cryptographic engines. Some architectures might have, like additional arithmetic units, right? I mean, in the sense, arithmetic units which can handle, like, beyond what normal the processors are able to handle. And some with higher precision, right? And also some with onboard algorithms which are already there in the CPU, like, for example, encoding, right, and decoding to a particular structure and all those things, hashing and all those things, right, might be there in the CPU, right? And these kind of things, like, we can't, a binary developer can't be prepared for everything, because, once you make a binary, you have to make some choices, and you'll be making the choice for the majority. That is, what does majority of users have? If your
Correct.
hardware is niche or very old, right, depending on which spectrum you're in, you will be missing out on your features, right,
Yeah.
of the
Correct.
architecture. And this is what Gen 2 kind of, gives you, right, the upper hand. And one last thing is the libraries, right? I mean, the last thing is, like, when you think about libraries, you can update one package and break the whole system. That is absolutely possible in binary based
Hmm.
distros. Why? Because
Right.
there's a library, like, for example, glibc, right? It's a
Hmm.
very common library which is used for printf, scanf, and all those, like mlo, all those things are implemented in glibc. And if you have a wrong version of glibc in your computer, and what happens is the SO file won't be found anymore. SO file
Hmm.
is a shared object. And what programs will do is, it will say, like, glibc, lib lib g I think libc, right? Libc.so
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
1.0.1
Yeah.
not found,
Not found.
for example, right? I mean,
Correct.
it will basically say like that. And
Yes.
that will basically cause an issue, because, then you have to either install glibc and don't reset the computer, because, glibc missing is pretty much nothing can run, right, except the kernel, right? Everything will be
Right.
breaking, right? And these kind of problems won't be there with Gen 2, because, you can download the package, you are compiling with whatever libraries you have, and that is
Right.
it, right? End of the story. And
Right.
it doesn't matter if you are even running a vulnerable, I mean, library, because, in the sense, you are not forced to change it, right? I mean, it's your
Yeah.
choice to change the library and, keep moving. And this is the overall thing about Gen 2. And the only problem with Gen 2 is that the processing power it takes to compile the distro. This is, I guess, a lot, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I would say it took me around 5 to 6 hours to set up KD and basic things, right? I mean, in terms of compilation.
at
So
least
if
one day to compile the whole system, right?
yep, I mean Firefox, Chrome, and I mean Chrome, we can just we can just keep it outside of the picture because that takes around a week in on some laptops. But yeah, otherwise, Firefox and those things you can do it within one day, I guess. 1 2 days is more than enough.
And the major thing is the errors, right? Errors decreases because of the tight integration.
Yeah, correct. So I mean,
It's
you guys might have experienced this thing. If you do partial upgrading art or maybe even you experience that system might not even boot something. So the only solution to that is you go to CH root and then upgrade. In Gen 2, it's like whatever libraries you have, the binaries have been compiled on those libraries. So this problem is never going to happen. And you don't have to update your whole system every time you want to install a new package. So That's a good point. Like, you can update whenever you want. Whenever you have some time, you can just go ahead and update. That's really good.
And the last thing is like, it even supports binary packages if you want. So
Yeah, I mean, it does have the, binary repository. So essentially, if you are going into that route, then there is no point. But then let's say there is some situation where you need the
binary.
program right away, then you just go ahead and download the binary from
And
the
one
internet.
another way is like, only binary is available. Still runs, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
it's a source based distro doesn't mean it doesn't run binary, right? I mean, absolutely it
Yeah,
runs fine.
right.
So, I mean, literally sources
And
compiled to binaries and run. So, it doesn't
correct,
run the
correct.
source code directly.
And if you see the repository of Gen 2 is huge. Like you might argue that Arch is bigger, but the thing is that Arch is AOR, right? It is not maintained by the official developers. Here, Gen 2 is the whole repository is maintained by the official developers, and I mean then also it is true Arch. So
Absolutely.
considering that, it's a big win.
And there's AUR, similar to AUR, right? I mean, in Gen 2, like,
Oh yeah,
custom
you can
custom repositories.
always enable those. Correct.
And the
So,
funny thing about this is like, in
mm,
Manjaro and all those distros, you actually
mm,
have pack AUR in the official repository. But in
correct.
Arch, you don't have pack AUR or even EA, right? In official repository.
Interesting.
So in order to access the AUR, you have to be, at least knowing how to install from AUR.
Absolutely. Yeah. Though I
So
think some of the distributions like Manjaro comes pre-installed. I mean, it doesn't come with EA, but they have enabled those custom repositories or servers through which you can install EI. So that's one thing. But otherwise, in pure arts, EI you have to go to GitHub and run that script.
absolutely
So that's a different thing. Correct. I mean, Gen 2 it's all available in the emerge. So
correct,
that's
correct.
amazing.
And the last thing is about choice. Like
Right.
in Arch, there is only one choice to go with system D, right? You don't
Yeah.
get to choose about like the
Hmm.
underlying mechanisms. You don't choose what kernel modules you want to run. Like, you don't
That's a big
choose
point.
which.
Yeah.
And these kind of choices really adds up in the sense like you can opt for a optimized driver or
Yeah.
a non-optimal driver, and for the gains, right? I mean, for example.
Correct.
And a lot of things can be customized to a point where like you're from the kernel to the the even the DE, right, is
Yeah.
customized to your own particular preference. So this is something we don't normally get, right? We only get it from Linux from scratch or some really base distros.
Yes.
And
That's
this
really
is
good
like a
point.
balance, right, in that point.
Correct. Correct.
Absolutely. And we have run into so many problems customizing kernels and all those things. And in
Right. Right.
theory, we
Right.
could run any kernel, right? That is a choice. Like, if you want
Yeah.
Arch, we could also run Arch,
We
right?
can just
Arch
go
kernel
to Arch
directly.
and correct. Correct.
Absolutely. Like, if you want, we can even run the Arch kernel itself, or you can just copy the configuration of Arch kernel and run it, right? So,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
I
Right.
mean, shout out
That's
to
only possible.
Gentoo developers, right? Made this amazing OS, I guess.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I
Right.
mean,
I mean,
like,
by the way, do you know there is one thing?
right.
Snapdragon is trying to compete with Apple M1.
Hmm.
What they're doing is they are increasing the performance. Like they are increasing the performance. But the catch is so solid. Like it does consume a lot of power. So if you see Snapdragon 888 and if you see Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, which is the latest flagship processor, you will see the graph is like way above 888 and very closer to M1.
Absolutely.
But if you see the TDP, that is thermal efficiency, uh, that is too high. Like the chip consumes a lot of power. And also, it is spontaneous. Like it doesn't stay for a long time. So if you run it for I guess 1 or 2 minutes, then the CPU has to go down to reduce the temperature. Otherwise, it will kind of explode. So and then when it goes down, it is exactly in the line of Snapdragon 888. So this is where I guess Snapdragon, fumble, and here comes the Exynos. So Exynos has made a good choice. Samsung is coming up with S22 and S22 Ultra in the next month. I mean, this month, I guess, or February. And the good point about, and the basic good point about it is like, it does have S Pen inside it. So there is no Note series coming in, like coming up this month. And I don't think so if Note is going to come on now. Because now, literally, the pen is inside of it. Just the screen size may be a little bit more in the Note. Otherwise, it's already Note. But the main point is that in India, it's going to release with Exynos 2280. I forgot the processor number, you guys can check. But the main thing is it does have AMD GPU, and we have seen that first time. I mean, we have already seen that in Steam Deck, which, by the way, already released in beta version. So, shipping to different
Very good.
but it now in the phone, right? With the ARM processor, we are going to see it. So I'm really excited about that processor. How does it perform in terms of, I mean, CPU, we cannot expect more because it's already, I mean, it's Exynos only. But in terms of GPU, let's see like how well it goes. Because we have
So
already seen, like, you see the video editing apps on Android and iOS, you see the speakers of those apps and enable flying.
right, right.
Everyone has great GPU. That's all. But with this AMD GPU coming into the ARM processor, yeah, really exciting.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So there are some rumors too,
yeah.
and the rumor states like it is not performing that good, right?
Okay, okay.
And I mean personally, I don't know about it. Like
I mean,
AMD is
are you
not
talking
that.
about AMD GPU or this
Yeah, AMD
Exynos
plus
CPU?
the
Okay,
Exynos,
the
right?
combination. Okay,
Yeah,
all right,
AMD plus the Exynos GPU, right?
all right, all
It
right.
is not
Mm-hmm.
performing that well, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I don't know, right? I mean, there are rumors saying that it is not
Mm-hmm.
performing that well, and Samsung is kind of cooling down the press
Yeah,
regarding that. Uh,
right, right.
but one reason it may be that AMD might be attacking the problem in a wrong direction, right? Maybe
Hmm.
no idea, right? In the sense, like they might be basically focusing on the GPU front like a computers, right? I mean, what
Sure.
computers do, rather
Yeah, I
than what
mean,
phones do, right? Uh,
correct.
so maybe this is a good thing because I think they might learn it right
They
afterwards
learn a lot. Yeah.
and make a better GPU for the next Exynos, right? It means
I
the
mean,
partnership goes through, right? I mean, still, right?
correct. And this is the baby step towards their own CPU.
And when you think about it, the M1, right? I mean, the M1
Yeah.
actually had a good GPU as well as a good CPU to begin with, and it had
Correct.
a lot of acceleration, right? Hardware acceleration, cryptographic acceleration. It had I mean, video acceleration. Right? It's like a lot of accelerations. So,
Yeah.
in theory, if anyone wants to crack it, this should be
Hmm.
making a processor with a lot of hardware accelerators. You know,
Absolutely correct.
and just I think personally nowadays shader engines are more important, right? Why? Because of
Oh,
the
yeah.
compositing, right? Like
Correct.
compositing needs a translucent effect and all those things, right? So we actually need more of these shaders, glitter engines, and all those engines. But I mean, texture engines and all those things. Yeah, I mean, it is good for, I guess, games, but it's not good for UI, right? And for
Absolutely.
making the phone perform better, all these other
Yeah.
engines have fewer larger. But in case of
Hmm.
PCs, I mean, they don't really do use that much transparency and all those things, right?
Right.
So they can kind of, produce engines. But we can't compare desktop engines to even phone engines because they are pretty powerful, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
one another thing is that like AMD was always, I guess, working on the front where power consumption was not a big problem, right? I mean, when you even think about laptops, it's not that
Mm-hmm.
problem, right? I mean, it's not that of a big problem, the power consumption, because the headroom
Okay.
is so high, right? I mean, for the power consumption. But for phones, it
Correct.
has to be very precise. Even adding, like 5.5 watts to the CPU will actually result in like decrease of 1 hour, right? 1 hour in a total battery backup, right? And that's a lot, right?
Absolutely correct.
So you have to be more precise. So
Yes.
this is the thing, right? And currently, I think Snapdragon is ahead in the sense of CPU and GPU computation compared to
Okay.
Exynos, right?
Right.
So
But Snapdragon is trying too hard to match M1. Like, it is
correct,
trying so much hard.
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, M1 is
Yep.
the dream, I guess. Now it's like every programmer has a dream to get into Google,
Yeah.
like that. Every chip manufacturers, mobile chip manufacturers' dream is to become M1, right? They have set the golden standard, right?
Right.
And I mean, M1 is pretty much not scaling up anymore. That is the thing, right? Currently,
Yeah.
that is one problem. I mean, either Apple is holding off M1, right? I mean, maybe they are not
Correct.
releasing the newer version so that people just get, you know, kind of saturated. Like, okay, this is the
Yes.
performance we can get. This is it. And people don't really, once you deliver the performance on table, they know like it is
Correct.
capable, right? And it is possible. And then the game changes, right? I mean, everyone tries to achieve that, right?
Absolutely.
So if you don't deliver the
Right.
performance now, and if you delay it and later deliver the performance, right? I mean, then it might take some time for them to catch up. And by the time you
Yeah.
already know that this is possible, so you are already working on better one, right?
Right.
So you are
That
like
is right.
working ahead of time and releasing behind schedule, right?
Hmm. Right.
And that's the tactic. I mean, most of the companies use, right? I mean, who wants to have the performance with their hands, right? In the sense.
Correct.
Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, most probably Apple is using that. And one more thing is, uh, that the architect of M1 has already left Apple, right?
Yeah.
And
With
that
the
is
chief
a thing,
legal
right?
designer. Right.
Absolutely. So, I mean, in theory, right? Even at Intel, the main architect who made Intel CPUs are not there, right? In AMD
Yeah.
also, right? The Zen processor architect
Correct.
is not there, right? I mean, the original architect.
Right.
Like, that is not a problem normally, right? Normally, the knowledge is taken forward, and the
Yeah.
employees do handle it, right? Keep on handling
Right.
it,
Right.
right? That is not a problem. But it feels like M1 is a little bit stagnant because they have been through already one release, M1 Max, right?
Yeah.
And M1 Max Pro, right? And maybe two
Now.
release.
Correct.
So these two things were a marginal upgrade to M1, right? Not much
Correct.
different at all,
It's not.
right?
It's not a huge upgrade. Correct. I
And
mean, maybe. I mean, this is what I think. Right. We have seen the rumors about 36 core M1 from Aegis, but it is not released. So this is what I think. Right. They are holding off to it. Maybe. We don't know.
absolutely
They're just letting the Snapdragon just touch the bar and then release the next version of M1.
correct, correct.
So
They're
it
just
could
waiting
be the
for
problem.
others to catch up. That is a
Yes,
major strategy, right? I mean, don't release
right.
all what you have, right? Release
Absolutely.
release enough to keep the like others.
In the market. Correct.
I mean, keeps others under, right? That is a just release enough to keep them under, right?
Absolutely.
And yeah, I mean, most probably that is a strategy, right? Because
Yeah.
whenever Apple comes up with something, it's something next level, right? For example, Steve Jobs came with the iPhone, right? I mean, we are now having all smartphones, right?
Right.
And BlackBerry started with the smartphone revolution, but
Hmm.
BlackBerry kind of didn't hit the mark, right? When you think about it, because
Yeah.
they thought people wanted typing keyboards, that is physical keyboards, and even
Correct.
I thought people want that. I even preferred physical keyboards at first. Then I even had to change because the society changed, right? You know, people
Correct. Correct.
people just didn't buy this keyboards anymore, right? The keyboard
Yep.
phones. And BlackBerry was so much, I guess, so much into that idea that they even took it to the grave, right? That
Yeah.
idea.
They, I remember the last phone had touchscreen and QWERTY keyboard below it.
Correct, correct, absolutely. Yeah, the top
What
portion.
the hell?
What was the BlackBerry One or something? BlackBerry
Yeah.
something.
Like,
Yeah, it feels like this is really a disaster, right? I mean,
right.
and they would release full touchscreen devices just to at least compete, try to compete, but by the time their time was over, right? In the sense, like, they just lost a lot of time trying
Right.
to just keep on fitting the same old technology, right? Rather than just finding the new one, something new,
Yeah.
letting it go, and maybe also supporting current, and maybe working on something new and total, right?
Right.
And whenever Apple comes to something, see, airports. Now we are seeing like wireless earbuds everywhere, right? I mean,
I mean,
companies are in a
they
pact.
removed the headphone jack, right?
Companies are in
This,
a pact, but in sense now it's a lifestyle, right? I mean,
right.
if you
Right.
go out, at least you will see one person at least. If you look at one direction, right, you
Absolutely.
will see at least one person with the like some wireless headphones, right,
Yeah. I mean,
or
in every
earphones.
family, one person has to have one Bluetooth earphone. At
Absolutely,
least one person.
absolutely.
That's
So,
a huge market.
and this is like this all started by Apple, right? The gluing in of batteries.
Correct.
Once it did it,
Yep.
everyone did it, right?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So this is like,
Correct.
I mean, this is maybe the M1 is a new thing, a new ripple, right?
Yeah.
In the market,
Right.
Apple is doing, right? Now people are switching to ARM. I mean, we can see like Oracle already has a ARM processor. I forgot which is the name, right? And they're giving it for free, right? I mean, the processor. I mean, the compute engine, right? It's like 4 cores, 24 GB of VRAM, not VRAM, RAM, you can have, right? For free, right? It's
Correct.
like
Correct.
absolutely gold, right? I mean,
Right.
and this basically means that everyone is moving towards ARM, right? Like, and some
Yeah.
companies are still holding on to CISC. I mean, there's a reason. Why? Because
Hmm.
you are not still seeing these processors adopted in supercomputers yet.
Right. They're
Still,
not there. Right.
still people are using CISC only, right? In supercomputers.
Correct.
So maybe for the mathematical computations on all the other stuff, right?
Cisco is
Maybe
better.
CISC is better, right? And this is
Correct.
just for normal people, right? I mean, normal
Yeah.
computation tasks, way better, right?
Right.
So, yeah, there you go, right? I mean, this is like a thing.
Yeah. Well, by the way, we have some comments, right? So Baba has asked one question that does it really worth it? I mean, installing Gen 2 and using Gen 2, does it really worth it? So
Okay,
I'll
I
only
mean,
say two
see,
points.
one thing,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
You
He
can go.
has a Ryzen processor. I know how much
Oh,
threads
yeah.
it is, right? How much threads it is. Like, if you see this part of the video, I mean, it may take a little bit of time for
Yeah. I mean,
stream to go through, right?
it won't take 10 seconds. So not more than that. Don't worry.
Yeah, I have
Not
already seen me do this.
correct.
You know,
Yeah.
if he's watching, he should have put it. How
Yeah. I mean,
much?
he's watching
12,
for sure.
12 cores or 12 threads? 12 cores or 12 threads?
Right.
Hexacore. Okay, six cores. Okay, that is
This
not
goes.
that bad, right? Six
That
core
is really
processor,
good.
and I think it goes up to like 4 GHz, right? And most probably it goes up to 4 GHz. So
Correct.
I mean, you can absolutely compile it, right? See, I
Yeah.
have a destroyer. I mean, I have Phoenix, right? Which is
Hmm.
just 4 cores, old generation Intel processor
Hmm.
with 8 threads. That is it. And it took
Yeah.
me, I don't know, like maybe like one day to compile the whole thing, like with all the gaps, right?
Right.
Not reducing the gaps, right? I mean, you
Hmm.
actually read took 2 days if you include all the gaps also, right?
Correct.
Uh, so in theory, you might only take like 7 hours in theory, right? Max at max
Yeah.
to get it running,
And
right?
the point. I mean, what he's asking is like does it really worth it after all those hassle and all those headaches? So I mean, it absolutely does, right? You are getting 100% out of your CPU. You're not losing any performance just because other CPUs has to be counted in for your binary. And second is performance aside, if you already have a good performing CPU, you won't notice huge difference. But let's say you don't care about performance, but you at least do care about stability. You want your things to run as intended, right? So when a source-based distribution is being installed and is being used, it has absolute zero margin for errors. So your applications will never, like one day you will open up and it won't open. Nothing like that. Never it's going to never never ever.
And the
So
thing
those are
is,
the
even
things.
upgrading is a choice, right? In the sense, you can
Yeah,
upgrade one package or you can upgrade the whole system. Right? It's all you, right?
correct, correct. In Windows, you have to update the whole system. In Ubuntu, you have to update the whole system. In Arch, you have to update the whole system.
I mean, Arch, you have to. I mean,
You have to.
it's end
Otherwise,
of
the
story,
thing
right?
will. I mean, otherwise the application won't even turn on. So
Next time you boot, you will be greeted with, I guess, TTY, right?
correct, correct. I mean, if you just keep your uh, Arch laptop aside, I mean,
For 1 year.
away from the update for at least 6 months or 1 year. After that time, you will see that those you will see 404. That means that those things are even not even those binaries are not even there. So you'll have to basically do SYY and update the core and those things. So that is different. Yeah, we are getting good comments. But
Uh,
learning with portable PC will take ages. Yeah, I mean, portable PC, I won't recommend. It will take around 1 month to install the whole thing.
just a context, right? Potato PC is one with Pentium, and I guess
Yeah,
4 GB of RAM, I think. 4 or 2. Right? Yeah.
I mean, 4 GB is portable nowadays. So yeah, anything. I mean, 8 is the starting point, right? The
Yeah,
standard.
8 is tomato.
Correct. 8 is tomato. Okay, I mean, we have good comment from Rushik. If build Chromium from AUR and install Chromium on Gen 2, will both Chromium have no? They won't have the same performance. Yeah,
Chromium
I
and Gentoo
think
will fly.
yeah. So what he's saying is, if we build Chromium from AUR, so he's saying
Yes,
Chromium Git, I guess.
absolutely.
And here we, in the Gen 2, we are of course we are building it. So
Absolutely.
so
Then also the
this is what
library
I
dependencies. You know,
correct. Those the Chromium, right? The Chromium doesn't come with all the binaries. What happens is some parts of the Chromium are pre-compiled, and it also depends on some of the libraries. So those libraries and those parts from the EUR, it will be not CPU specific, but in Gen 2, it will be all the things will be CPU specific. So that's why you'll be getting better performance in Gen 2.
absolutely. With AUR, you'll be better with performance. You'll be from 0 to, I guess, 10. But from 10 to 100, you will become if you get Gentoo. There
Correct,
is a difference.
correct, correct. Anytime
And
compiling from
I
source is
don't
better than
recommend
binary.
compiling Chromium though. Right? If you
Absolutely
have a
not.
weekend, maybe, right? But otherwise,
I
don't. Right?
mean, if you use Chromium for your life living, then do compile it. But otherwise, use Firefox. Use Firefox for everything and just use Chromium for those specific Google apps like Google Meet or something. Maybe those apps.
And one last thing about this is like the libraries, right? Normally all the programs will really specify which version it is, right? Like
I see.
for example, like
Hmm.
libc .1.1. But in Gen 2,
Mhm.
it is not that specific anymore because it is not looking for that. It is just looking for libc.so. That is it. End of story. Right? So
Understood.
this actually means that even the precompiled Gen 2, I mean not precompiled Gen 2, precompiled Chromium might use a newer library and be fine with it, right? Or
Correct.
older library and be fine with it, right? I mean, unless it is like a very
Yeah.
old library,
Yeah.
very old, ancient, relic kind of library, right?
Right.
With all the spiders and all those fancy stuff, kind of library.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah. So there is a new trend of NFTs. You might have
absolutely,
observed, right? Nowadays. And none other than our close friend Arjun. He's
absolutely.
the world's greatest artist, right?
Yep,
He's creating his own NFTs. So, yeah, I mean, I would like to know about NFTs. Right? Please shed
absolutely.
some light.
So NFT is like a non-fungible token, right? So it's
Right.
basically something built on Ethereum, right? So Ethereum is not
Right.
a normal coin; it's a smart coin. And why
Understood.
it's a smart coin is because you can actually run code on it and all those things. Actually, and it is Turing complete. The language is Turing complete. That means that it has loops and all those things, right? And whenever you want to run these, like smart scripts, you can say, right? And whenever you want to run these things, you need to spend Ethereum. And to spend Ethereum, there is another type of, currency called gas. Right? Gas is a smaller unit of Ethereum, right? And that is given to the VM to run. And it's like it runs on gas, right? Basically, the VM runs on gas. And these all concepts are like next level, right? I mean, this was the first start of Ethereum, right? Then what happened was like there came NFTs, and with NFTs, what is happening is you can actually take a article like a photo, a video, or a file in general, right? And then invest on top of it, right? Then
Amazing.
what happens is, the artist should invest on top of it at first to host it.
Hmm.
Then that is like a deposit. Then
Hmm.
people
Hmm.
can
Hmm.
invest on the NFTs again and again.
Understood.
And once they invest, they have the shares of NFT, right? Kind of like they
Oh,
get the share, right? And
correct.
the artist can actually take out the the investment
Hmm. 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 Hmm.
because
Hmm.
he owns it, and now that is the income for the artist. But if the artist
Right.
takes off the investment, what happens is, I mean, no, not artist's investment, everyone's investment, he can take it off, right? I mean,
Understood.
it's not like they have if one of which you can take off some part of it, the whole.
Okay.
And if the whole is taken off, obviously the NFT itself is taken down, right? But if
Correct.
a part of it is taken down, the value of the NFT decreases. So next
Oh,
person doesn't have to invest that much, right? And that is a
right.
problem because that the interest of the creator will be to keep on rolling, right? I mean,
Correct.
how much as it goes, right?
Hmm.
And yeah, even like those uh, photos which really
Hmm.
looks like, I guess, 16 by 16 pixels or something, right?
Yeah, yeah. Those monkeys and those things, right?
Absolutely. And
Bananas and
they are
different.
sent for billions, like
Yep. Yep. Yep.
billions of US dollars. I mean, like, and
Right.
yeah, Arjun was like, okay, I can also do this too.
Arjun will be like, I can do this in 5 seconds.
Absolutely.
What's the point?
Yep,
Right.
yep. And I mean, he
Hmm.
started doing it, but the problem is
Hmm.
he's having a small issue. That is, um, he has to invest, right? I told him about this, that you have to invest,
Hmm.
but he
Oh,
forgot about that
okay.
part, and he checked it, and the investment is around 1,000 to 2,000 rupees. So he is having
Understood.
second thoughts. So if someone has some money, right, send it to Arjun, right? Maybe Arjun will invest, and maybe he will give like some parts of shares to you, right? And there
Absolutely
you go,
correct.
right?
Correct. So, so you gave a really good insight about NFTs.
Absolutely.
And I watched one video of Mr. Who is the Boss. And in that, I saw that, NFTs could be copied by anyone, but the rights of it, let's say I created the NFT, right? So I am the original author of the NFT. So that only stays with one person. And this
Because
is
of blockchain.
maintained through, yeah, maintained through blockchain technology. So now if I sell the ownership to you, I get the money from you. This is how I think it rolls, right? So
Absolutely.
essentially, I have the copy of it, digital copy of it, but the ownership is now gone from my side to, let's say, yours or
Absolutely.
you or someone else's side. So that's also an interesting concept, like
Yes,
how
yes, yes.
people use this
There can
blockchain.
be also multiple owners for a single NFT. So in theory, if you kind of
Right. Mhm.
invest on NFT, you become an owner, but you are a shareholder in
Correct.
the NFT.
So something like if you invest in a company, you become the shareholder, but you're not the author. You're not the owner.
Correct, correct, correct,
Right.
correct.
I
So
mean,
the owner
that is
is
totally
always the
amazing.
artist, right? At first, obviously.
Correct.
And then as the time goes, artist might sell to some person, and then goes
Hmm.
off, right? Literally. And the owner has the privilege to also take the deposit out, not the complete deposit, a part of it, right?
Hmm.
But if owner kind of takes out all the deposit, he does, and as far as my knowledge is correct, it will
Hmm.
actually collapse. The NFT doesn't exist anymore, right?
Oh,
And then I don't know
okay.
how the funds are managed. I mean, does it get
Hmm.
tilted back or just extinguishes? I have no idea, right?
Yeah, there
But
is
there
some
should be
deep
some
knowledge.
system, right? I think, like
Yeah, there should be some system. Correct.
absolutely.
Right.
And these things are like, I mean, a lot of things supports, I think, like not just Ethereum, right? There is like a, and there are a lot of markets, I guess, like NFT
Hmm.
markets. Binance is there, right? I mean, Binance Coin is there, which supports also, right? Binance is based
Okay.
on Ethereum, right?
Amazing.
And there are a lot of websites, I guess, which can
Right.
host actually Ethereum, right?
Yeah.
And yeah,
Right. Okay.
so
So coming to a different topic now. Uh, I mean, in the chat, like, there are lots of viewers right now. If you guys have any interesting topic or interesting question, please let us know.
absolutely,
Meanwhile, I'm like going to one interesting thing that is Meta. So there was a sudden collapse of valuation of Meta. Like we have never seen this much of collapse. So the collapse was around 252 billion US dollars, and that is huge. I mean, that is huge, right? So
absolutely,
I mean, what has gone wrong, right? The whole the whole thing about Facebook, the core idea about Facebook has changed. They are leaving the. I mean, lots of people already have lost. I mean, lost interest in Facebook as a platform, but lost in the valuation of a company is a huge deal. And this is, I mean, we all see metaverse is a thing. Metaverse is going to be future, but how and why is the question. Yeah, I think you can take from here.
yeah. So the thing is, like, Facebook, I guess, Facebook, we say everyone is, Facebook is evil and all those things, right? And they
Hmm.
wanted to change the whole,
Yeah,
Facebook
image of the
image,
company.
right? So
Correct.
they changed to Meta to rebrand themselves and maybe get a new start.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
I think it is still backfiring, right? I mean, in the sense,
It is backfiring. Correct.
it's absolutely backfiring. Uh,
People are not blind, right?
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
That is the major thing, right? They are missing because if they just name it from, like, even people are saying Facebook is losing money, not Meta is losing money, right?
Correct. Correct. Correct.
I mean,
Right.
they're not even accepting the fact that Facebook is Meta, like most of them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's like they're just calling it
Hmm.
Facebook still, right? And
Right.
the metaverse is not ready, right? It's like some product which they are
Hmm.
boasting, but until and unless they, users have something to test out, right?
Absolutely.
Users will lose the interest, right? It's all about
Okay.
hype, right? In the sense, when
It's the
something
hype.
happens, it's like a curve, right? It goes up
Yeah.
and goes down. It's done, right? I mean,
Correct.
if you are
Hmm.
going to introduce a product,
Yeah.
then introduce it just before it's ready, right?
Also include some hardware, right? If they
Absolutely,
would have introduced Oculus with Metaverse, that would have been
absolutely,
a totally different thing. But
absolutely,
Oculus is not accessible by everyone. So,
absolutely.
I mean,
I mean,
they say they
that
like.
thing itself
Right.
costs a lot of rupees. It's like 80, it is something. I forgot, right?
What?
For that head, the Oculus Rift, right? Like 80 or something,
Oh, yeah,
1,000, right?
right.
I mean, for the
80,000.
for
Yeah,
the so that's a lot. I mean, people can't afford it. I mean, there are cheaper alternatives, right? So
correct.
people do go for that, right? And uh, the major thing is, like, metaverse. Where is the beta of metaverse, right?
Hmm.
I mean, no one has it touched, right? Where is it, right? And okay, someone put Gendo versus Serenity OS. Okay, I haven't used
Yeah.
Serenity OS. Have you used?
I just searched about it.
Okay,
So Serenity OS is a Unix Linux based operating system, and
okay,
it is
okay,
having that iconic 90s user interface like theme.
right,
They're not specifying what it comes pre-installed with some desktop environment, but which one they're not specifying it.
got it.
The kernel features are mentioned, system services are mentioned, libraries are mentioned, but I'm not sure, like, how it goes. So
Yeah,
sorry,
it's
no,
still
like
binary
we cannot
based,
be
right? So
Yeah, I
You
mean,
won't be
not so sure,
having
right?
that. One thing about Gen 2, right? I mean, it's like minimal modifications are done on the
Hmm,
actual source code, right? And actually, one thing, cool thing about Gen 2, right? I mean, I think you
hmm,
can take it, right? I mean, how
sure.
was the experience with LibreOffice?
Okay. So first of all, LibreOffice for Gen 2 is a special thing. Like if you install LibreOffice on any of the distributions, RTOS, Debian, Ubuntu, Pop! OS, Manjaro, you will see the banner of LibreOffice whenever it is loading, right? That thing. It's a generic banner. It just mentions LibreOffice and that's it. But in Gen 2, if you open LibreOffice, you will see LibreOffice logo. Below it, you will see Gen 2 logo. So from there itself, the thing comes that it is there is something specific going on for Gen 2. And if you click on any of the application, like let's say LibreOffice Draw or maybe
Right, right.
Kelsey or Writer or something, it opens within 1 second. It's like a
You
snap.
can't even see that logo, right? I mean,
That
you
logo
have
is
to
like
have eagle eyes, right?
just there for half a second. So it's a whole new experience with LibreOffice, and even
Absolutely,
many applications. But LibreOffice specifically, it is so fast.
absolutely
That is
fast. So
amazing.
there you go, right? I mean, like, and the experience for me with MPV and all those applications was like they use very less RAM compared to
Correct.
Arch. Arch
Correct.
in Arch actually, if you load a video, MPV, right, 4K video, it uses around like 1 GB of RAM. But in Gen 2,
Yeah.
it doesn't use that much. It still uses
Right.
the needed amount, that is 800 MB, but not really, 1 GB.
Hmm.
Right? But
Right.
I mean, this
Understand.
is this is with all, you can say, like all the features enabled of MPV, right? So
Yes.
somewhere else it is saving the memory, like some other
Yeah.
library is not that fully fledged,
Libraries and those things. Correct.
fully fledged. So there you go,
Yeah.
right? And one major thing, right? If when
Hmm.
you're compiling some binary, you have a choice to optimize for multiple architectures and detect the architecture
Hmm.
and jump between them, right? Kind of. So that is
Right.
a CPU optimization. Then what happens is the binary itself is bulky with all the instructions, right? I mean, it has specific
Correct.
instructions for each architecture. And
Yeah.
then what happens is when you kind of run it, that is fat, right? The binary is fat. And then the whole binary is taken into memory. And there is so much dead code in the binary that it just becomes totally, unacceptable.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, if you are trying, right? I mean, like Baba, right? You are kind of trying this thing. Uh, I guess there is a lot of things in the processor, right? The AMD processor, which are bleeding edge, which
Hmm.
will be also enabled,
Yep.
for your particular use case. And this
Just look for the
will be
flags.
correct. And most of the uh, OS, right, are actually natively compiled for Intel, not in AMD mind. And
Right.
you
That's
might
also
actually
correct.
have much better experience than even pre-code in terms of
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
performance.
Yeah. My CPU is way old. Like it is 3, 4 years old, and it is
Absolutely,
Intel. Yours is
absolutely.
AMD plus it is pretty new. So with that, you'll be having huge difference.
I think you can try first in a VM. Don't judge the performance in the VM just
Hmm.
for getting used to the the
Installation
package
procedure.
manager and all those things. Right? And
Right.
afterwards, try it outside. The only problem
Correct.
with Gen 2 is that you can install it and try. There is no try, without installing, because the OS itself doesn't exist out of the box.
Yeah. There is no live environment or something like
Yeah, I mean the live environment is pretty much a terminal, so you're dead, right?
that. Yeah.
And it even doesn't have an emerge. Right? I mean, compared to Arch Linux, actually
Arch
they
at
don't
least
even
has like
need a live environment. I mean, in theory, you can
you can
use
use any
anything,
ISO.
right? I mean, you can do
Correct.
whatever, right? And install Gentoo. Right?
Yeah.
It's
That's also
absolutely
right. Yeah. For
absolutely
any
amazing.
other distribution, you need their own specific ISO. For Gen 2, you can use any ISO except Windows and macOS. You can use Windows 7. Go ahead.
Maybe macOS also. Why not? Right?
Yeah, macOS is Unix. Yeah, you can go ahead. I think
Why not?
it's just shell, right? Shell and
Absolutely.
some
I
of
mean,
the
Windows. Uh, with a little bit
Hmm?
of tinkering, maybe with
Tinkering, but
ext4
it's
support,
possible.
maybe,
It's
right?
possible. Right.
But don't recommend it, right? I mean,
Absolutely
it's
not.
like too much headache. But Mac-OS,
It's not worth it.
it is doable. I think,
It's
it's
doable.
doable.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, yes,
Yeah. I
that is
think
it. Right?
here ready to close the stream. If you guys have any questions or something, please let us know. Otherwise, it was a good talk.
Yep. I mean, if you have any doubts, you can also post in future, right? This one.
Correct, correct, correct. Right.
You know, if you install Gentoo and you have some problems, right? What is
I mean, you will have the answer problem.
yeah, problems is all about Gentoo. Right? That is one thing,
Correct.
don't expect something to be very smooth at first.
Yeah, yeah.
You'll run into
True.
like a million issues
100%.
because the thing is, no, nothing is pre-installed. Right? You have to find the dependencies. You know, some of
Right.
dependencies are already there, right?
Yep.
Um, okay, I mean, one way is to not use that, right?
Hmm.
I mean,
Okay. So what Baba is saying that Preet's
yeah,
first
yeah.
point for
The
Gentoo,
answer for that is,
less bad.
one way is to not use it.
Okay. I desynchronize. Right. Absolutely. Don't use it. But in Windows, the thing is that the system is so closed and so tightly, you know, adjusted by Microsoft that it is so hard for us to do it. But anyway, there are like multiple different variations of Windows Lite XYZ, lots of variations of Windows. Those in theory will reduce the RAM usage. But anyway, specific binaries, if you open
So,
Chrome,
yeah, like,
it will take
one major
same
thing, right?
RAM. Yeah,
This is two different
yeah,
things. De-bloating versus, like
right.
de-bloating in the binaries. This is de-bloating
Correct,
on the
correct.
system, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So,
Right,
yeah,
right.
you can continue.
Debloating in the binary is not possible in Windows,
Absolutely.
but debloating in terms of system is possible. And at the end of the day, you will have some less RAM usage if because the programs itself are not there.
Correct. But
Yeah,
if you run MS Paint, it will take as much as memory.
exactly same. I mean, if it is there, right? If it is there, at the
Absolutely.
time you install Windows. But
Absolutely.
yeah, anyway, it will take same RAM for different programs. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
So,
think we are good to close the stream, I guess. Thank you, guys.
okay. So, yeah, I mean, one more thing, right? I mean, one last thing,
Yeah,
right? There is a thing called
sure, sure, sure.
reactors, which is bad. I mean,
Hmm.
currently, but if you can adjust, it does actually use open source code, right, to
Oh,
run the whole Windows-ish environment. So
right. They've
you can
backported it.
actually run
Right.
some binaries in it. Right? You can try it out. It should be faster, but
Yeah, in theory it should because
expect
it is.
bugs, a lot of
Yeah,
bugs.
yeah. It is based on Windows NT, I guess. So
Yes, a leaked
that is
source code
too
of old Windows.
old Windows. After that, Windows has had a huge change in Windows source code. So many of the binaries won't even run. But if it runs, then it will be
Bava,
good.
like, the PowerShell. PowerShell is good and all, but the commands in PowerShell is really doesn't make sense. It is too big. Like, like normally in CMD it was like net user set, network name, this done. Then in this it was like, net hyphen, user, right? I mean, net n capital n have to be capital, hyphen, then user you have to be capital. It's like so much. I mean, why?
Absolutely.
Who does different commands like that, right?
See, Baba, the point, what he's saying is it is better for corporate employees because it automates the stuff and it does work.
Yeah,
But
but
there are better ways to do the same thing
in Linux,
in the next. Yeah, of course. But there are better ways to do the same thing with
why
less
corporate
complexity.
users use it is because of the
They don't have the
fact that
option.
Microsoft is there to blame. See,
Correct.
any data breaches, blame Microsoft.
Yep.
They give them guarantee, right? Who is there to guarantee Linux, right?
No. Yeah.
No one is there to guarantee Linux. So if any data breach or anything happens, there is Microsoft, and Microsoft will assure it, right? And they are really careful with corporate OS. If you kind of have a corporate laptop, you can know, like, the updates are very less frequent. They are really careful in pushing anything, right, into the
Correct.
laptop,
Correct.
and it is pretty stable also, the OS itself,
So
right?
stable. Yeah.
So
I mean, it is running 1 or 2 years behind the main OS, right?
correct.
So it has to be stable.
Absolutely. And I am pretty sure that it has commits which are not even there inside the normal OS.
Good point. Absolutely good point.
Won't be
Yeah.
even there, right? For example,
The whole.
OpenSSL has two types of OpenSSL: OpenSSL FIPS and OpenSSL. OpenSSL FIPS is not that performant, but it is
Hmm.
compliant with every encryption, scheme in the sense. FIPS is certification, right? And it's
Okay.
compliant in the sense, like, it is so secure that it got a certification for it, right? But
True.
OpenSSL is having the bleeding technology, everything, but it's not FIPS certified. So you can either run FIPS or not. And
Hmm.
Firefox, there is ESR and Firefox. ESR is so tested to be such perfect, right? But in the
Right.
sense, what you will do, like, if your computer gets hacked due to a vulnerability in Firefox, you can't blame Mozilla. Mozilla says, okay, see the source code. We never saw it. We never saw the thing.
Yep.
Right? And that is it. We never saw it coming. Right? That's it.
Right.
Microsoft is like, they have to see it coming because they are the only people who have access to it. You
Absolutely
know,
correct.
they have to be, right. They have to give the money. And the thing is, Microsoft is such a big corporation that they can ensure. They have the money. Right? I mean, people don't actually understand how big Microsoft is. They are
Hmm.
as big as Google or even bigger.
Correct.
They're trillion-dollar companies, basically. And these,
Huge.
it's like, a pretty big thing. Right? Even MS will pay money if there's some data. I mean, yes,
Correct,
but
Ruchi.
not for
Yeah.
you. Not for you. If you have data breach on your laptop, they'll
Hmm.
pretty much they'll pretty much try to avoid it. Maybe if it goes to a lawsuit, they might give a little bit. But that is
Right.
not how much they give for corporates. There is
Yeah.
like a lot of billions of dollars involved in these lawsuits
Correct.
with corporates. This is not about $1 million. It's not about even, like, tens of millions. And
Yeah. Second question is like, he's asking that in Windows, if you have VirtualBox and inside of that, if Windows is there, Windows will lag, but Linux won't lag in VirtualBox. Essentially, his question is that in the VirtualBox, Windows lags and Linux doesn't lag. Why is that?
okay, I mean, Windows uses too much hardware acceleration, in the sense. Linux doesn't. Right? Linux is an
Yeah.
OS which is not built onto the fact that the hardware is so powerful to run the thing.
Absolutely.
I
I
mean,
mean,
Windows, the hardware had to be some bit powerful, right, to run it.
well, if you remember, Chromium and Firefox, they didn't have hardware acceleration till I guess 2017 or something. From that point onward, they started incorporating acceleration into Linux. They had from ages
Absolutely.
in Windows, but Linux they didn't. I mean, they didn't even consider, right, that these people will need acceleration.
Yeah, because, like, without acceleration, it's fine. That is, that's
It
the
just
thing.
works. Yeah.
It just works.
Yeah.
So, why accelerate? That's a idea of Linux. Right? But the thing is, for Windows, it's like, it has so much UI specifications. Like, okay, if you drag a window, it's like translucent. Your start menu is a little bit translucent, right? And the settings is totally abomination, like, of all the things. Like, it even tracks your mouse, and, like, it's like a whole lot of abomination, right? So it's like killing the GPU, right? It's like,
Correct.
putting GPU at gunpoint. That is how Windows is, right? With the yeah, with the whole UI, right? And one last thing
Yep.
is, like, Linux as a system, right, doesn't take that much
Mm.
resources. I mean, in theory, to run.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Actually, one more idea, right? I think, right? This is not a 100% proven thing. I
Mm.
think WSL is actually artificially slowed down by Microsoft, by a law, to make
Oh,
users slowly migrate into Windows.
okay.
Because,
No.
you try to run some commands and it will be running
Mm-hmm.
very slow than native Linux. I mean, If you run even in a hypervisor like VirtualBox, it will be
Mm-hmm.
running way fast than this.
Right. I mean, I might have misunderstood his question. What he's asking is Windows VM in Windows versus Windows VM in Linux. So host OS is the difference. Host OS, if I mean,
Right. I mean, the thing is, Windows needs acceleration, right? So even if Windows is
if
running
you consume the
in a VM, it will
yeah,
be not having acceleration. So that is a major problem. But Linux in
yeah,
Windows is much more faster because Linux doesn't need much acceleration. Still, our
correct.
point is still valid. Right? Exact same point,
Hmm,
but different scenario.
correct.
I think open source VirtualBox runs it on Windows when there is not much difference with open source VirtualBox and the original VirtualBox.
Yeah.
The major difference comes from the fact that open source VirtualBox is actually using what you can say like the open source, OpenJD built, while
Hmm,
the other one is actually using the Oracle's proprietary, JDK to be built.
yeah.
And one last thing is it might be having a little bit more, uh, what you can say like
Okay.
commits on top
I
of
mean,
it, right?
Rushik is saying about. I think Rushik was talking about VMware. He just corrected.
Oh, right. I mean,
This
VMware is
totally
see,
different thing.
VMware should be faster in theory. Why? Because we are not talk. I mean, he's mentioning VMware is faster, right? Is it? I mean, by default it should be right.
I think we.
Rushi, can you like is
Yeah.
VMware faster than VirtualBox? But just saying, VMware is normally faster than VirtualBox. Why? Because VMware, as we
Hmm,
know, is a hypervisor company. They are not really making like just hypervisors for you. They make hypervisors to run in their data centers, and that
I
takes a
see.
lot
Okay.
of experience, right? Like a lot of guts to do
Right.
it. And virtual boxes used nowhere. I mean, virtual boxes used for just
Correct.
normal stuff. Right? That is it done, right? End of story. Right? Even KVM is used
Yeah.
like next level. I mean, Red Hat uses KVM a lot, right? For their KVM plus QMO, right? A lot for their virtualizations.
Hmm,
But I
I
mean,
see.
VMware takes things to next level, right? I mean, it's like a bare metal hypervisor.
Hmm.
I don't know if you know it, but there's a thing called VMware ESXi, right? I ran it at first.
Oh,
Actually, Preet might
okay.
know, right? Destroyer was running VMware ESXi
On
for like
VMware.
1 year, right?
Correct.
And
Correct.
that
I
is very
remember.
fast, right? And
That was
the
pretty
thing
good. Yeah.
is, you can even unplug a USB from your laptop and plug into your, you know, like the server remotely.
Hmm.
How wicked is that? Right?
That
You
is
literally take a
that's
USB
a dream.
and virtualize it, right? And this is over network.
Correct.
It's like, yeah,
That is seamless. Yeah.
absolutely seamless. And VirtualBox,
Right.
one more problem with VirtualBox, it conflicts with Hyper-V, right, of Microsoft. So if you have Hyper-V, VirtualBox will literally run like a 10% performance of what it can achieve.
Correct.
So if you have Hyper-V, disable it. The feature is disable it.
Yep.
And Microsoft Hyper-V is also really good. If you have Windows, I guess, Data Center Edition or I guess
Hmm.
Enterprise Edition or not Pro, I think. Pro doesn't have. So either one of
Yeah. I
these,
think
you can
enterprise
actually have.
enterprise for sure do have.
Yep. Enterprise for sure do. Because I have tried it, right?
Right.
And these two, right? Windows for data centers and Windows for enterprise. If any of
Hmm.
these
Hmm. Hmm.
you have, then you can use like the KVM equivalent of Windows, that is Hyper-V. That is also wicked fast. But the only problem is the
Right.
drivers, in the sense you have to install proprietary disk drivers, even compile it inside the kernel to maybe make it work. Even Arch won't even detect the disk if it doesn't have that thing it's loaded, right? I mean, it's
Yep.
already there in the thing. You have to make, MKCPIO, right? In that thing, you have to specify to put this module inside the initram FS. Otherwise, it can't mount the root and boom,
Hmm.
no disk, kernel panic.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
So
Right. So I think that's it.
proprietary apps work on Windows better. Actually,
Yeah.
one app I can
He
say
is
which works
correct.
in Linux better is NDS.
Hmm.
NDS glitches a lot in Windows, but it glitches very less in Linux. But I think it glitches a lot everywhere. So like who am I to judge, right? What about Android? With newer versions, I am losing more and more interest in it. I mean, Android is a joke, right?
So, I mean, we have two interesting questions. One is from Neeraj and one is from Deepak. Both are interesting. So,
Absolutely.
okay. I mean, Android is a huge thing, right?
Android is like Google is just trying to be iOS. Google tried to be the
Exactly.
enthusiast OS at first. That was Android.
Exactly.
Now they don't want enthusiasts anymore. They want normal users who just use phone for banking, maybe calling people, and maybe taking selfies and posting it in internet. That's it. That's it. All they want people to do. Not anything more, not anything
Yeah.
less. And this is what they're trying to do. Lock down the ecosystem, right? I mean, yesterday I was like, I found out that UPI apps are now banned for rooted phones. I mean, today,
I
right?
see.
Today, today or yesterday, today only, right? Today I learned like
Today,
okay,
yeah, today evening.
and UPI actually did work with rooted phones actually at first.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not talking with messages, without messages. We're talking without messages,
Without Prince, yeah.
and we are not
He
talking
doesn't have
Google Pay,
medicine
right?
in his home. Oh, yeah.
Google, we are not also talking Google Pay, which will refuse to work if even a root is found. Right? So we will throw away
Correct.
Google Pay. We are going to talk only about the phone pay and all those other things. It used to work, but now it seems there's another update which rolled out that prevents any Android which is rooted from running UPI. That is, sending the money is not allowed, but receiving money is allowed.
Receiving the money is allowed.
So that is a pretty insane change, right?
Yeah.
And one more cool
And
thing, right? If you port the phone number from your phone, right,
mm,
and put it in a new phone, and you don't remove the
mhm.
SIM, in theory you can keep using your UPI, right? In the old
Correct.
phone. So
Interesting.
there's a breach, right? Security breach, right?
Yep.
Right.
And Rushik is correct. Like, problem with anything not Android or iOS, you don't have access to banking apps or maybe UPI apps or something. So
Absolute.
that's a necessity nowadays.
That's a absolute necessity. It's like I don't know why. I mean, what is the difference between a computer and phone?
Actually,
Right? It's like both has processor, both has RAM, both has an OS.
yeah.
It's not
I mean,
different.
so I mean, actually, Deepak, your question has been answered by Rushik. Like, why people prefer Windows is because they don't know, or maybe there are softwares which don't exist in Linux, which they require in their daily life, like Photoshop, like Adobe, whole suite of Adobe. And there are multiple games, right? Multiple games which are only Windows exclusive. So, likewise, banking apps and those things, there are softwares which are only available in certain OSs. And this is a deadlock created by those creators of the OS.
And one more thing is
It is
errors, right?
pretty hard to overcome it.
Linux gives you errors like a programmer
Yeah,
does, right? It's like they will
correct.
give you, okay, this exact line did something to this, that caused some error, right? And normal user is like error 73, boom, done.
Correct.
And they are like, okay, this doesn't work, done, right? Otherwise, it's like, okay, I hate this code, I hate to see this code, I don't want to touch it. Right? Windows is
Yeah.
like error 73, boom, exited. Right?
That's right.
And then people will be searching, okay, OBS error 73, and then they'll be finding the solution, right? Instead.
Yeah. I mean, they'll find the solution for sure, but it requires a totally different, I mean,
Strategy.
totally new skill set. So
Absolutely.
that's like,
And Windows
that's why,
doesn't require another skill set. Why? Because most of the errors, actually the internal errors are hidden, right? And the solution either works or either it doesn't. But in Linux,
that's true.
it always works. But the problem is
Correct.
you need to be at least a programmer to understand that that is the accurate solution.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can just trial and error. But the problem is there are a lot of solutions. If you try doing trial and error, to narrow it down, you have to be a programmer. That is a
Yeah.
major problem with adopting Linux. But the thing is, your printer is running Linux, your router is running Linux, your phone is running Linux. I mean, Now you're saying the one thing that runs Windows is a major thing. No, right? I mean, it's like,
Absolutely not.
there you go, right? I mean, like,
That's right.
it's like you're already using Linux a lot.
Correct.
It's just that you are not knowing it.
Hmm.
That's all. Linux is there everywhere, right? When you go to google.com, it's Linux. This serves it. It's like you're using Linux already. Like, I mean, the 90% of things you do is already in Linux. But the only thing is you are not knowing it. Because it's that subtle, right? This one.
Yep.
I mean, see, VLC, right? It was developed
Hmm.
in Linux and then ported to Windows. And only
Right.
because of mass adoption in Windows, it got popular. But still, it
Yeah.
was basically a Linux media player at first.
Correct.
And most of the popular apps, in the sense, like, I mean, Firefox, Chromium, all were developed for Linux first. Then
I see.
taken to Windows. Because, from the first
Hmm.
version, the version 1, these all apps
Mhm.
were written for Linux.
Right.
Then it get ported to Windows. So the beta was for Linux, then ported to Windows. But Microsoft, that's just not the case. It's the difference. First was written for
Yeah.
Windows, then taken to Linux.
Right.
Nice to see tutorials coming in.
Indian tutorials coming on YouTube. Correct, Roshan.
Right,
mean,
so I
people
don't
are.
think we have any more questions. Or is there?
Yeah, I don't think we have any questions.
Right.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you,
Yeah.
guys. Thank you for interaction and watching. Please leave a like if you liked it and share it to your techie friends. They will also get some knowledge. Right?
Absolutely.
We'll come every Sunday around this time, 9-10 p.m.
Yep.
All right. So goodbye for 1 week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.